Okay, so we're gonna get into painting. We're gonna get into hopefully something that's a little more fun for you guys. So if you go into the folder for color theory, not that one. All right, so into pattern painting, and then the only thing that'll be in here is the presentation for pattern painting. A lot and be a little overwhelming, but I'm going to break it down into different steps with you guys. The first step, obviously, will be just the sketching part and drawing out your idea, and then we'll go from there. But so you guys are going to create an abstract painting using monochromatic, complementary, analogous, and split complementary color schemes. So we did touch on all of those when we did your color chart last week and this week. Then you painted all of them except for split complementary. So just to recap, analogous colors are three colors in a row on the color wheel, so like red, orange, and orange. Complementary colors are across from one another on the color wheel, so red and green, orange and blue, yellow and violet. Line we went over when we did your Zentangles, but it's an identifiable path created by a moving point. So if you have a moving point on a piece of paper, that path that you make is the line that's left behind. Lines can be horizontal, vertical, or diagonal, straight or curved, thick or thin. Monochromatic is a color scheme that uses one color and tints and shades of that color. Shape is a two-dimensional area that's defined in some way, so usually it's defined by edges with lines or like two different textures or different patterns. The differences are what gives you that edge. And shapes are either geometric or freeform. So geometric shapes are like triangles, circles, rectangles, squares. They're shapes that you can that have mathematical formulas to them to figure out. Freeform shapes, or also called organic shapes, they're random shapes, so like leaves or petals or things that don't have a definite mathematical way of figuring them out. And then split complementary is it's where you take your complementary colors and you pick one of them that you want to paint. So if I wanted to use blue, I would go to its complement, which is orange, and then choose the two colors on either side, so red, orange, or yellow, orange. And blue would be my colors. So on your 6x6 manila paper, you're going to create an interesting design using line and shape. So when I do geometric work or like patterns, I tend to get very like tedious, and I want like everything to line up perfectly, and everything be the same or as similar as I can get it. So I chose to make my square symmetrical, which means if you divided a line down the center, it would be roughly the same on both sides. But you can make yours random or different. You don't have to make it radiating out from the center. You don't have to have it where everything lines up. It doesn't have to be the same thing repeated over and over again. You're just going to break up your space on that 6x6 piece of paper. And you don't want to leave any large empty areas. So you want to fill everything in really well using lines and shapes. Because you're at home, you won't be able to use the light box here, so you'll have to use a window. So once you have it drawn out in pencil, I would go over it in a Sharpie just to make your lines dark enough so that you can see when you trace it. So you're doing just one design on that 6x6 paper. Then you're going to take the bigger paper, which is 12 by 12, and you're going to, I would use a ruler and divide it in half horizontally and vertically, which is what I did, those straight lines right there. And then you can use that to line up your little square. You're going to trace it 4 times on that big paper, so 4 times each corner, all of them meeting kind of in the center. So one of these is my little sketch that I made, and then I traced it 4 times to make the bigger paper with the bigger pattern on it. If you want to have them all radiating out from the center and making them all the same, you can put a dot in your little, on the corner of one of your corners, and then you keep that corner in the middle every time you go. So you're going to you would rotate it as you go around so that the same corner is in like that, in the intersecting point right there. But you don't have to do that either. Once you're finished with it, you're going to trace the whole thing onto the oak tag that's 12 by 12. If you feel confident, you can trace your little tracer and you can go directly on the oak tag. Just make sure you keep your lines pretty light with your pencil because that paint isn't really going to cover it too well. So, and then with each one of those squares, you're going to use a different color scheme. So monochromatic, complementary, split complementary, and analogous. You don't have to use the same color throughout it. Like I said, I like to plan everything out that I do, and I like it all to be similar. So I wanted to use yellow green as my color that carried through all 4 different color schemes. But you don't have to do that. You do not have to have the same color in all of them. But you can if you want to. So like I said, I knew I wanted yellow green, and it makes it easier for choosing your colors because yellow green has to be one of them. So it really limits your options. So, like I said, I made sure that I wanted yellow-green throughout the painting, and I made sure each color scheme had yellow-green in it. You don't have to do that. You're going to paint each square using different tints and shades of your colors, so you can add white and black to your colors. So if you look at my monochromatic, my yellow-green is just yellow-green. I added white to it to make lighter tints of yellow-green, and I added black to it to make darker shades of yellow-green. So you can add white and black to your colors for each square. You would ideally, if you were here, mix up your own containers of paint, but because you're home, you're going to be using the temper cakes. What I would try to do with the temper, because you can't mix like a ton of it all at once, I would paint, like, figure out how many colors you're going to be able to paint in that day, in that class period, and then just work on getting that done so that you don't really have to save paint. You do have to use 2 coats. So make sure that you use 2 coats, paint one day, and then paint it again the next day if you can. So here's my monochromatic. Like I said, I used yellow-green, and I added white and black to it to make different tints and shades of yellow-green. So no 2 shapes next to each other should be the same because that gets rid of your shape. You won't see it anymore. Split complementary, again, I used yellow-green. The opposite of yellow-green is red-violet, so I used red and violet with my yellow-green, and then I added white to it, which is why it's pink and lavender. Complementary, so yellow-green, the opposite of yellow-green is red-violet, so that's what this is. Analogous, I used yellow-orange, orange, and yellow-green. There we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, so yellow-green, yellow, and yellow-orange were the colors that I used here. And then here's all 4 of mine together, so you can zoom in and see each one having a different color scheme. And then here's the same rubric that you guys use for all of your projects. Make sure that you go through, did you meet the requirements, how's your craftsmanship, etc.